How do you find the next area that's about to go boom? It's very easy in today's data-driven world to find property markets that are going boom. But you don't want to really invest in markets like these because you're elbowing competition away whenever you try and buy. But all of these markets that are going boom today have factors that happened beforehand that are easily predictable too. There is a chain of events that happen before that market goes boom. Hi, I'm Ridham Syed, founder of Confidence Finance, 6 times top 100 mortgage broker here in Australia, and I've had the pleasure of serving thousands of property investors over the past decade, watching them grow, build, and scale their property portfolios. If you're interested in this channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, and you'll get regular content from me, informed by all of the stories of property investors all across the country and sharing that knowledge with you. So let's go through the chain. It all starts with economic change. Economic change is something that occurs in an area that promotes economic activity and increases economic activity relative to itself. So when an area's economy starts doing better, you start having flow-on effects that eventually leads to more housing demand. The first flow-on effect is more jobs. When the economy starts doing well and businesses start doing well, they need to go and hire more people. When more people get in jobs, that is the first step to going and upgrading your home, to going and buying an investment property, to going and potentially buying a house as a first home buyer. A job is the starting point for buying a house. But people get in jobs when the economy, the local economy, starts doing well. The local economy is also driven by macro factors, interest rates, global settings, global financial conditions, credit controls. There's all these outside local economy factors that can feed through to a local economy. But what you're looking for is local economic change. What is going to drive an area to do better economically? That then leads to jobs. Once those jobs kick in, that's where income growth kicks in, and you start seeing more and more people participate in the housing market. And that's where more demand comes in. There's one more overlay to provide on top of all of this, and that's a restriction in housing supply. Now, if all of the jobs are coming in line in the construction industry because everyone's going and building homes in that area, that's a bit concerning because these homes are going to be built and those construction workers are no longer going to have jobs. So you want to see economic change in the right industries, but you also want to track housing supply. So you have this chain of events. Starts with understanding the global and the domestic context outside that local economy, the Australia-wide and global context. Then it looks at the local economic change. And then you flow through into the jobs market, and then that flows through to incomes, and that flows through to housing demand. And when housing demand goes up and housing supply doesn't correspondingly increase, you have housing demand outstripping housing supply, and you have price growth. You have Hobart in 2018, you have Perth in 2023, and you have the seeds of a property boom that's going to set you up for your financial future. So, if the first starting point is the economic performance of a particular location, how do you find out what's going on here? This is a little bit tricky to do, and it does become a bit uncertain because you're projecting into the future. You want to look at an area that's going to start doing well either now and starting to sow the seeds of economic change, or is going to do well in the future. This could be a number of things that you look at. The key one is looking at gross state product. How much activity is actually happening in this location. You can also look at retail spending, equipment spending, how businesses are doing in that location, the political environment of that particular location, of that state. Has there been a change? Is there an increase in infrastructure investment? Is there a stronger push to creating an economic narrative that supports business conditions to do really, really well? It could be a government change that triggers all of this. Now, how do you assess this? This is all well and good. You want to look for an area with economic change, but how do you go about doing that? That's really, really tricky to do. What I do and what tools I use is a combination of two main tools. The first one is the CommSec State of State Reports. This is a quarterly report from the Commonwealth Bank that comes out that ranks each state on its own performance based on economic activity, the job market, equipment investment, retail spending, housing finance, and a whole range of metrics, and it compares each state. The best thing about this report is it's not comparing Perth and South Australia to New South Wales itself. The individual analysis of each state is relative to its own state performance. Put in other words, it is looking at economic change, the key metric that you want to look at. How is an area changing relative to itself? Is Perth doing much better than Perth usually does? If that's the case, that is that economic change you're looking for. And that's what this report does. It compares what each state is doing relative to its 10-year average across a range of different metrics. I'd highly recommend you go down into the comments below, download this latest report, and look at the last few, and it will showcase to you what's changing. If you go back a year or two, you'll see Perth and South Australia going up the rankings, getting stronger and stronger, and now you have that into the housing market data in boom markets. A second bit of information that I like to use is state budgets. Every year, each state releases their own budget and it comes up with a little bit of an economic narrative of how that state is doing. Now, we live in a world with ChatGPT that can give you a lot of these answers and break this down much, much simpler for you. So you don't need to go through and pour through budget after budget and try and read these really, really boring, dense documents with numbers everywhere. You can go into ChatGPT and put in the right prompts. Tell me a little bit about the New South Wales economy and the WA economy. Compare the two. Give me the change in gross state product year on year. How can you give me the forecast that this state has over the next few years? Can you give me this forecast relative to its 10-year average? You can ask it the right questions to get you the right data, but what you're really trying to understand is economic change relative to itself, and you're looking at raw data sources like state budgets. Obviously, you can use ChatGPT to help you with that, but using raw data sources like state budgets and the ComSec State of State reports to help you understand economic change. Remember, it is the first stage of that domino chain of events that leads to stronger housing demand. Economic performance of an individual state. Now, one thing to add here is each state in Australia has slightly different factors. When you look at New South Wales, for example, it's an economy that's service-based, relies on household spending a lot more, has higher house prices and more mortgage debt. So a change in interest rates, one of the domestic-based factors right up the top, really impacts New South Wales a lot more than other states. Compare it to WA, a very, very different economy with a different mix of industries that make up its total gross state product. Obviously, mining and mining-related sectors make up a much larger share of the total activity in WA versus New South Wales. So you want to pay attention to different factors and how it impacts different locations. The second key factor to look at, and this is a domino impact from the first factor, is how is the jobs market performing? For this, I use this beautiful labour market tool that's available on an Australian government website that compares every single state and gives you the national indices for employment. So you want to see a jobs market doing really, really well, and you want to look at lead indicators. Looking at just the unemployment rate isn't really enough. You want to see trend direction in the jobs market improving. Now, here's the truth. Right now, in 2024, because of the high-level factors, with interest rates really, really high, inflation really, really high, and our economy slowing, all of these areas have declining trends in employment terms. All these areas were doing really, really well in the jobs market, and it is getting a little bit worse pretty much everywhere, wherever you look. But the scale of how much it's getting worse does depend on which area you're looking at. And when you look at microeconomies, in regional economies and things like that, you're going to find areas where the jobs market is doing really, really well because the economic change of that area is very, very positive. You see that in Townsville as a really good example. So many people are investing in Townsville and in Mackay. Part of the big reason there is they have high unemployment typically, but right now they have much, much lower unemployment versus what they typically have. Another indicator that you want to look at is the trend direction of employment. If you can see employment going up and unemployment going down consistently, you start seeing that area begin to change, and it's going to go from an area that you look at to an area that's going to do really, really well. So you've got economic activity and then you've got the jobs market. The third and final piece to look at when working at which area is going to go boom is housing supply. You want to make sure that if demand is shooting up, that you don't have a corresponding increase in housing supply. If you do, then you're just going to have equilibrium and prices won't go up, and you would have picked an area where demand's gone up, but housing supply's gone up, and it defeats the purpose. So you want to look at an area where approvals and commencements are a little bit below their average too. That means the number of housing dwellings that are going to be coming into the market are simply not enough to meet that increase in housing demand. That is exactly how prices begin to rise. Demand outstrips supply. When that occurs, house prices rise. So what you are looking for through all of this chain of events is to find areas where demand is going to increase and supply is relatively constant. That demand increase is going to be driven by the area or the economic performance of that location doing well and jobs being created as a result, and that pushes up more and more demand into that location, and that's what you really want. And here's the bonus, the fourth juicy bit, and this is the structural change in the property investing dynamic. If you find these areas, you find it early enough, there is a herd that's going to come after your property. You know why? It's because there's more and more buyers agents, more and more data-driven property investors that just follow these breadcrumbs, but they start the breadcrumbs a little bit later. They want more certainty. They don't look for economic change of a location to begin with. They're looking at demand and supply of individual suburbs. But these are just driven by those economic factors that I talked about earlier. If everyone starts here and they start seeing that demand rise, they're going to see days on market of homes coming down. They're going to see less stock available. They're going to see rental vacancies coming down, asking rents going up. They're going to see all of this. They're going to look at all this data. They're going to sit there in their Sydney computers and tap on H-tag and DSR ratio tools and all the tools out there, and they're going to quickly find, wow, these numbers are really, really good. They've never been there. They're going to look at it, be like, this data metric's so good. And the best thing is, there's thousands of people sitting at their computer right now, this week, thousands of people all across the country doing exactly the same thing. They are going to follow each other. So if you get this right, you get in early, you find the areas that are going to have economic change just before they do, or on the early side of that change happening, you will be rewarded, and you will be rewarded quickly, because there's a stampede of data-driven investors who would jump on this a little bit later, and you can take advantage of the herd coming right at you. If you found this video helpful and useful to help you work out what to look for and how to look for it, go in the comments below, go in the description below, and you'll get access to the CommSec State of State reports, and you'll get access to a little bit more information that helps you work out how to look for economic change. And if you can do me a favor for all of this, just hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, and I'll keep producing insightful property-related content for you all.